It's week 12. It's a big week for finishers, a big week for gales, and a big emotional week for the next group that crossed the line. And the final miles were very hard, as the weather delivered yet another challenge. It may have been midwinter, but Les Sables d'Olonne was buzzing. Nothing stops the locals from coming out in force to welcome the skippers back. 74 days after the start and having welcomed the first 3 boats, it was time to welcome 6 more, in quick succession. And this meant it was time for some red flares, champagne and heartfelt hugs. The first of the new arrivals was Jérémie Beyou in Chirale. After a brutal and stressful approach to the finish, he crossed the line to take 4th at 1 a.m. on Friday. He'd set out as one of the favourites aboard one of the most complex boats in the fleet, and while finishing 4th may not have been what he and the team were aiming for, it at least put to bed the crushing disappointment of the 2020 race when he had to return to the start to make repairs, putting him almost 3,000 miles behind the leader. But now it was relief that was etched into his face.
It was quite hard. At one point, knowing that it was impossible to be on the podium, it was quite a bit difficult to admit. And at the end, there are bad fourth place and there are beautiful fourth place, and it's a beautiful one because I achieved to be at the front of this pack and I managed to keep this fourth place until the end. It was quite not easy task. And I'm very glad to have achieved that. These guys, Nicolas Lunven or Sam Goodchild, they are champions. And Sam Goodchild is like quite a monster. What he did with his mainsails a few days ago is just like crazy. He sailed very well, and he's not well aware by what happened to him, but he's going to finish the race and. He's a huge sailor, like Nico, like Paul, like all these sailors in this group. It was very, very high level, yeah.
10 hours after Jérémie Beyou had finished in 4th, Paul Meilhat in Biotherm crossed the line. Having been forced to abandon his previous race in 2016 with a keel problem while he was in 3rd, this was a big deal. He'd pushed hard up the Atlantic, but a forestay failure meant there was a serious risk of losing his mast. Carrying out a nerve-wracking repair aloft, he was able to keep his foot to the floor and secure 5th.
Quite difficult because I had a big front behind me and sometimes big gust at 40 knots. So I did some Chinese jibe and it was not easy, but this morning was more quiet. I know that I have time before the channel, so I focus about the back to think about the race and what I did, and I'm really proud about me and proud about the team because the boat is quite good shape. And now I'm just enjoying and just happy to see a human face because I didn't see a human face in 2-3 months, and particularly my friend, my family, the team, and I'm super happy. So thank you, and Vendée Globe is amazing.
This was also an impressive feat following the fully crewed ocean race in which Biotherm suffered several structural breakdowns and was considered to be one of the more fragile boats in the fleet. Meilhat had now turned that around. Nicolas Lunven aboard Holcim PRB looked set to be the next to cross the line in 6th place. But even with just a few hours left, the stress was still there.
120 miles to the finish line in Les Sables. After a crazy night at sea in the Bay of Biscay with many jives, very tough condition. Right now it's just a bit light for I don't know why, to be honest, but it's supposed to be 35 knots and I have 15. I think it's going to be back soon. This is the sky, so very tough condition for the finish. Very stressful.
But at 10 to 8 in the evening, Lunven sealed the deal and delivered his 6th place. No one doubts Lunven's ability. He's an accomplished and talented offshore sailor. He's won the Solitaire du Figaro twice. He's competed in the ocean race 3 times. But this was his first Vendée Globe in a boat that he'd only taken over in September 2023. He'd made his mark early on by being the first skipper to set a new IMOCA 24-hour distance record on the way down the Atlantic.
So of course I am very happy to be there. It was of course there was some very nice moment, but also some difficulties to face again. So very happy to finish the race. Finishing the race is already a kind of victory for myself, but I think for all the teams and our sponsor.
He, like everyone else, had suffered his own list of gear failures, including the loss of his masted instruments on the way back up the Atlantic. But in a handy demonstration of a topic we covered just before the start, he illustrated the importance of having a backup system on the stern. Another 9 hours later, Thomas Ruyant, aboard Vulnerable, crossed the line to take the 7th. This was his 3rd Vendée Globe, and while every finish in this race is a success, his was the first to show signs of disappointment. He'd started as one of the favourites, a brand new boat to the latest design, a talented sailor who'd finished 6th in the previous race. But his trip round the world this time had been beset with technical problems that had forced him onto the back foot early on.
Oh, la guerre!
And when he lost his crucial J2 headsail on the way up the Atlantic, he knew his chances of getting to the front of the fleet were gone. As he finished, the shredded remains were still there.
Non, ça n'a pas été tout le temps un chemin de croix, elle a été dure, mais je pense qu'elle a été dure pour tous les marins et chacun a eu son lot de soucis et c'est ce qui fait le sel de cette course. Maintenant, c'est sûr que la remontée de l'Atlantique, voilà, il y a eu des cartes météo pas faciles à jouer, des avaries, il a fallu faire avec tout ça, mais je suis hyper fier en fait d'avoir terminé, d'être arrivé ici en gardant l'énergie que je voulais mettre du début à la fin et voilà, je suis fier de ramener un bateau en bon état, même si voilà, il y a eu des problèmes, quelques petits soucis, mais je suis hyper fier de l'équipe, de ce qu'on a fourni là depuis 3 ans pour arriver à un beau bateau comme celui-là qui m'a donné quand même beaucoup de plaisir. Voilà, après c'est sûr que le résultat sportif il est pas celui qu'on espérait en partant et je pense qu'on m'aurait donné ma place au départ, j'aurais pas signé et ça aurait été bien con parce qu'au final voilà, ça a été une belle course et avec de la régate un peu à tous les étages et voilà, j'ai pris beaucoup de plaisir, parfois moins, mais voilà, c'est ça aussi qu'on va chercher sur un tour du monde. Mais non, très fier de ce qu'on a réalisé avec tout le groupe.
But later on, he spoke candidly about the moments that had scared him and described the time that he ran out of power in the deep south and the boat shut down. With no lights, no instruments and no autopilot, he was left steering by hand in up to 30 knots of wind in the dark, while the hydro generators put charge back into the batteries. Later on Saturday, Justine Mettraux crossed the finishing line. She was the first female sailor in the race, and the Swiss sailor became the first non-French competitor in the fleet. She had also set a new solo record as the fastest female around the planet, beating Clarisse Crémer's record set in 2021 by 12 days. But right until the very end, it hadn't been easy. On the final night, she'd torn her mainsail, forcing her to sail deeply reefed and slowly. Behind her, Sam Goodchild, who'd suffered a similar fate days earlier, was closing in. But Mettraux kept her foot to the floor as best she could to finish 6 miles ahead of Goodchild.
Yeah, it's just really nice to be here today, for sure. As always, when we finish a race, it's first the team, and I had my 2 sisters also joining on the boat, so it's a nice moment to share that with them first. And then it was incredible today. It's Saturday afternoon, it's sunny, and it was amazing the amount of people who moved and joined to just to salute us, and that's crazy, and it's really nice.
Mettraux is no stranger to round the world racing. She's done 3 with a full crew and won the last ocean race aboard 11th Hour Racing. But she only took up solo in Mocha racing 2 years ago. This was a superb result. Just 25 minutes later, Sam Goodchild crossed the line. This was a bittersweet moment for the British skipper, who took 9th place. He'd been in a tight battle with Jérémie Beyou for days, and while he'd slipped from 4th to 5th, this had been an exceptional race around the world. He'd driven a previous generation boat into the front end of the fleet and stayed there. But a couple of accidental jibes when the autopilot let go had ripped his mainsail, the Imoca equivalent of a puncture on the home straight of a Grand Prix. Goodchild was forced to stop, make repairs, and then soldier on to the finish. And in the final stages, he had everything, from a full-on foam up at Finisterre to nothing just 200 miles from the finish.
Our last sunset, if all goes to plan, just over 200 miles from the finish, and it's a little bit of a moment to appreciate the last sunset, the last time being on my own for a while. Looking forward to finding familiar faces, my family and everyone. And the last night, that's not going to be easy because we've got 0 knots of wind now, or not far off, and expecting 30 knots later and everything in between, so the wind might be coming already actually. So yeah, it's going to be a busy one, but it's what a Vendée Globe it's been.
But while losing 4 places was a big blow, Goodchild remained positive about his first Vendée Globe. He and everyone else knew that he'd delivered an outstanding race. But perhaps the most revealing comment about the cool and level-headed Sam Goodchild came later on when he was asked how he was dealing with losing a 4th place. This is what he said: "My goal of doing this Vendée Globe has been achieved. I've been dreaming of this race for 20 years. It's shaped my life. It's why I live in France, why I have a French family. Everything revolves around the Vendée Globe. It's the common thread of my journey. So losing a place isn't so bad compared to what this adventure represents for me." The next 2 skippers to arrive had even more on their plates to deal with. As another gale drove in from the Atlantic, the prospect of crossing the finishing line near a lee shore was pretty intimidating. Getting into Les Sables d'Olonne in these conditions would be pretty risky, if not impossible, forcing both Benjamin Dutreux and Clarisse Crémer to head south to La Rochelle after the finish to take shelter.
Donc voilà, j'ai essayé de trouver les bons compromis pour aller vite et rentrer assez vite à la maison. Et ben je vous dis à bientôt et je vous tiens au courant du ETA. Allez, ciao ciao, là on est au milieu des grains, on remonte au près. Et ce soir il n'y aura pas de vent, on arrive dans une dorsale. Donc ça va être une zone un peu aléatoire. Donc on verra pour la suite. Allez, à toutes, ciao.
The next day, on Sunday afternoon, Benjamin Dutreux completed the top 10 as he took Goya Environment Water Family across the line. A few hours later, he was in La Rochelle.
What I feel a lot of emotion. That's not easy to translate all of my emotion in English, but I have tried to learn that during the ocean race, but I don't remember all what I learned now because a lot of emotion submerged me, but it's a crazy time.
And when he addressed the crowd, that emotion came spilling out. At 3:30 on Monday morning, the emotion burst through for Clarisse Crémer as well.
Et qui est-ce qui a passé la ligne d'arrivée du Vendée Globe?
toute seule au milieu de la nuit, avec personne, mais avec la même joie. Un peu moins de 78 jours. Un tour du monde.
Added to the relief of finishing, the conditions for the closing stages had pushed the stress levels through the roof. But by the morning, she was buzzing.
That my preparation for this Vendée Globe was not exactly easy. It's been a roller coaster of emotions and struggles, and I'm so proud of this team. This team made it happen, and it was not easy to make it happen. We had to qualify, we had to be here, and at the start of the Vendée, I didn't really know what I could pretend to about the performance, and I think it was above my expectations. So I'm super happy about what we managed to do with this boat and the whole team. And it hasn't been easy, but we've been well rewarded.
So, with 11 boats now finished, the leaderboard looked like this. Boris Herman and Sam Davies looked likely to be the next to cross the finish line. Both had to slow down to allow the serious gale to pass through ahead. Behind them, there's another wave of finishers preparing to sweep into Les Sables d'Olonne, from Romain Atanasio through to 22nd place Jean Le Cam. It's going to be a busy weekend in the famous French port. But with 12 boats still racing, the locals know that they're still just part way through their welcome party.